Today, we're going to talk about all the mistakes that I've made with and without partners that have accumulated on actually probably more than maybe millions of dollars. So anyway, I'm going to share a lot of these and to see if we can help you avoid them. So I have a pretty long list. We're going to rattle some of them off. My name's Barsanti. I'm CEO and founder of StorageLife. What is StorageLife? We're a community across the country. We're finding, funding, and operating storage together. We also teach you how to do it or help you scale. If you want to know more, go to StorageLife.com. Cool, let's dive in. Okay, so I have a pretty long master list here. I'm going to just rattle these off for you guys. So one of the first things that I learned was that I didn't leverage the bank's money enough. So we had a property that had a lot of capex, and we decided, hey, look, right now we each had about 150 grand into a deal, and that was a lot of money at the time, still is, and it was like squeezing to get that in. And so even though that bank was willing to fund 80% of the capex on that property, we still would have had to put 20% down, right? If it's a LTV of the loan is 80-20. So let's say capex budget should have been 200K, but we're like, oh, if it's 200K, we have to put, 60K or whatever that is out of our pocket. So we thinned out the capex. Dumb mistake, amateur mistake. So we didn't fix everything when the bank was willing to pay 80% of all of the capex. So lesson number one, leverage the bank's money. If they're willing to pay most of your capex, then get everything fixed, everything that's needed. In this case, there was a gate we had that worked. It was older, but like it was a wrought iron gate and looked like it was gonna, probably work. We made another mistake that we decided to keep the manager on that we kind of had a weird feeling about, but we're like, he's been here for 8 years. He's handy. He said the gate's running fine. He actually built the thing himself, right? It sounds scarier than it was, but now we would have came in and we would have made sure that gate was working really well and it wasn't going to crap out. So a couple of weeks into ownership, the gate not only crapped out, but it happened to be a facility that was also getting like major break-ins. And so we were desperate to get our new gate in as quick as we possibly could. And so we had to expedite the process, and it cost us 30 grand. Now, luckily we had overfunded our reserve account. We always do that. We've actually, I feel like, done a really good job of that, where we'll always overfund on the front end and have, some comfort in case we do need extra money that comes up. But so thankfully we had that, but we had to take $30,000 out. I think it was actually about 6 months into that deal. So I also think we were cash flowing pretty much day one of that facility. It was great. It was during COVID and we kept renting units like crazy. So I remember it was heavy cash flow. So it was probably a combination of how we paid for that. But that was a $30,000 mistake that if the bank would have fixed it on the front end, it could have cost us only a couple grand. So the big mistake. Let's talk about managers. It's easy to take on a facility, buy a facility, and you're like, oh, you know what? This manager's fine. It's easier than going and hiring somebody else. And I think we're going to make it work. If you don't feel good about it, don't do it. Now, I'm not saying your managers can't be rough around the edges. And like I've kept people on that live there and they're like, I was like, man, they're probably not the best manager, but they like the property. They treat it like their own and they are willing to live in this kind of rough market and area. So I was okay with that. And usually it works out. But if your managers aren't great, your revenue is going to suffer no matter what you or what you think. And so I know it's hard and I know it's ripping off the Band-Aid, but I want to empower you to know that there are great people out there. And if you have an on-site living quarters, my operational manager, Dion, has really helped kind of solidify this and saying, find somebody great. Find somebody who's a great employee that's willing to live on site. And I know it's easier said than done, but like go that extra mile to find that person, because when you have them, everything's going to soar. Your management, your rentals, your auctions, your delinquent accounts, everything is going to soar because you found the right person. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to take over a facility. You're going to be like, they're fine. They'll work. They've been here for a long time. And then you accept that. And then you move on to your next facility or whatever else. And you never go back and fix that problem. Meanwhile, the facility slowly struggles. I can't express this enough. Find the right person on the front end, because going back and fixing that problem is tough. And it's scary. What you guys will find is as you scale and you build a larger team and you have more facilities that can pay for that team, you're going to get yourself an operational manager who's going to oversee your managers and properties. And when you have that, you're going to really, really kick butt, because that when you get a really good operational manager that can oversee your portfolio, they can be hands-on with everybody and they can go through a grueling 3 to 4 week process to rip somebody out of a facility that's lived there for a long time, look for somebody new, go through all the hiring, all the vetting process, all that stuff. It's a big deal, and it's a lot just to do it by ourselves, but eventually you'll get there, and that's going to be where you really shine on that. So in general, slow to hire, quick to fire, we've done the opposite. We had one operational manager that we were quick to hire and slow to fire. We liked the guy a lot, very overqualified, sharp, even had a law degree, and like even was running an RV park, and we liked him. We like him still. He was a good guy, and I think he tried hard. He just wasn't the right person in the right seat, and we kept making excuses to try and keep him and be like, oh, it'll get better, it'll get better. And in retrospect, we should have let him go probably about a year and a half sooner. But again, living and learning. And so just be really careful on your vetting process on the front end, right? Vet not only the deal you're buying, but the people you're going to attach to the deal, your partners, but more so we're talking about hiring people, your manager. Vet them. It's okay to say you could get 150 applicants from on-site management, boots on the ground. It's okay to say no to all 150 applicants very quickly and be like, I'm not even interviewing any of these guys. Take your time. It's extremely important, and it's only going to make things a lot easier on you in the long run. Let's talk about some more like simple capex stuff. Fix everything you can. Does curb appeal matter? Yes, it matters. So when you go into a facility, especially when you have banks involved that you can leverage their money, fix the lighting, have great lighting, good cameras. They don't have to be expensive, but just good, full coverage, door hinges, latches, weather strips. Paint the facility, even if it was just painted, and if it's of an ugly color, paint it again. Make that facility look great. If you have a sign, paint. If you have an ugly sign, do a new one. If you have a run-down sign that lights up and you have good visibility, spend the money to revamp and relight that sign. Do everything on the front end. This is not only revenue driven, but you're moving into a new product. You're happy, you're excited. Fix everything on the front end. It's going to give you less problems on the back end, and it's going to make you more money. Promise you. Do it all on the front end, all these little things. Keypads, and make sure everything's working to where it needs to on the front end. Okay, let's talk a little bit about operations now. Not doing aggressive enough rent increases, being okay and happy. Let's say you have a facility that's cash flowing a lot and you're like really excited about it and you're 90% full. Stay on your rent increases. If you're full, that means you have to raise rents, even if you already are top of the market. If the rental demand is there, it's okay to be the price leader. I'm not saying necessarily be an Extra Space or somebody else that's going to bring people in at a deep discount and then like chop their heads off and do 100% rent increase in 3 months. But like know that when times are good, you have to ride that wave. When times are good, take advantage of that and keep pushing rents. When you're filling up, make sure, especially if you're competing against REITs and other people, make sure that you have aggressive enough move-in specials. I know the point of today is saying all the $1 million mistakes. Everything I'm talking about is mistakes and I've made and lessons I've learned, not aggressive enough move-in specials. It's okay to do a first month free banner. If your other competitors are doing first 2 months free, you may have to do that too. Be the most aggressive, cheapest person when you're on a fill up. If you're on a lease up and you're 30, 40, 20, 50% occupied, be aggressive. Fill those units in at a deep discount, get them all in, and then you can start raising revenue. Dion really kind of pounded that home for me as well, and it's been a big help on that. Remote management, we do remote manage. Just be really careful. Remote management means you're potentially saving a lot of money on the front end, but if you're not actually saving money in the long run, then what's the point? Let me give you an example. So let's say we're remote managing a facility, but it's not getting the attention that specific facility needs, and your boots on the ground's not doing a great job, and they're not keeping it clean, and they're not keeping the weeds out, and they're not trashing out units in a timely manner. In the long run, you're actually going to lose money. So on the front end, going back to what we started at the very beginning of this video, if we would have just hired the right person on the front end that was kicking butt, they would end up helping you drive more revenue because of your curb appeal, because of your delinquents, because when somebody'd move out, they'd have that cleaned out, shut and locked right away. All those things end up hurting you in the long run. So you can remote manage. I do. I've done it a lot. I'm a fan of it. But know when you're fully managing remotely, just be very careful and constantly kind of observe, hey, I'm running this completely remotely. I only got a boots on the ground going once a week and it's saving me all this money. It can work, but it also can actually cost you money in the long run, as opposed to like, you know what, let's have somebody going there 2-3 times a week. Hey, instead of our studio apartment that's getting $600 in rent there, let's just give it to somebody for free and find a rock star person. We're going to lose that $600 a month. We're going to pay them another $400 a month. So now it's $1,000 a month that's costing us, right? So that's only $12,000 in a year. But what if that's actually going to help you make 20 to 30 to 40 grand because of how well oiled that machine is? So again, just quality on the front end versus cutting corners. It depends on the facility. Some you should run them remotely. Little stuff, getting too close with tenants and managers. You know, that's the thing as we get started, especially that happens. Little things that ended up being a big deal or can be, you know, having a tenant on property that a live-in resident, if you have a duplex or a trailer or something on your property, if they have a dog, be really careful and make sure you're fully covered in case, you know, anything were to happen with the dog. Again, that's just random, but you'll run into it more than you think. When you scale and you start owning multiple facilities, you're going to start getting spread thin, and just know that if you don't set proper expectations and training and procedures in place on the front end, your managers are going to suffer because you didn't set them up for success. This has to do with something we haven't covered yet, buying the facility. One time we went with a lender. They were a credit union. They were like giving us a great deal, but they weren't very versed in storage. And after like 40 some days of telling us they were going to give us the loan, pulled out at the last minute. It was crazy. First time I'd ever gone with somebody like that. We were buying in Florida. It cost us the deal almost. And then we had to, thankfully, through nothing short of a miracle, we closed with hard money and were able to get the deal done. But that deal almost killed us. Another big thing, we're talking now bigger money, right? 1031. We did a couple 1031s. One, my wife and my partner's wife are both CPAs. We have great financial tax advisors. I think between the two of us, we had like 4 or 5 people kind of help us with a complicated 1031 2 different times, and they both failed. So I'm not going to give you great advice, but just the crystal clear advice. Even when you're talking to a tax advisor or a tax planner or CPA or financial advisor, whatever that is, know that you should get several opinions, because sometimes 1031s can be really tricky, and often 1 or 2 people or 3 will tell you that it's going to work and they miss something and they don't work. And that will end up costing you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, as it has us. So just be really careful on a 1031. Always when it comes to tax advice, to financial advice, get several opinions. Ask your other successful partners and friends who their advisors are, your coach, whatever it is. Speaking of coach, when you're going and you're doing another mastermind or a coaching program, I've had probably 10 in the last 6 years. They're not all created equal. When you go and get a coach or a mentor, I want to give you a big suggestion. Set the expectations on the front end. Ask them how are they going to help you, and let them be crystal clear of why they can help you and how they're going to help you and what you're going to get from working with them. And if it's not crystal clear, make sure it is. Don't go invest time and money into a coaching or mentor or community unless you're pretty crystal clear of what's actually going to actually happen. Ask as many questions. Empower yourself. Give yourself that permission. Ask as many questions, making sure whenever you go into these programs that you're really vetting the person, vetting their track record, what they've accomplished, and how they're going to help you. Not conceptually, how they are actually going to help you. I think that's a great start. We covered a lot. So we'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much. Good luck. Bye.